Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us for this conversation, Connecting Students and Activating Industry, Harnessing the Power of Profession-Based Learning. I'm Julie Lammers, the Executive Vice President of American Student Assistance, and we are thrilled to have you join us here today for this really interesting and engaging conversation about how we ensure employers are part of the conversation when we're talking to kids about profession-based learning, and really having employers and school systems partner together to make sure we're having highly engaged and effective programming for students. As I said, I'm Julie Lammers, Executive Vice President of American Student Assistance. We are a national nonprofit focused on ensuring young people have the education and career resources they need to succeed long term. And we are thrilled to have partnered with the CAPS network on this effort to figure out how can we ensure more young people have the experiences that they need for lifelong success. One of those that we think is incredibly powerful is profession-based learning. This is something that CAPS Network has done very well for many years and has partnered with school systems throughout the country to ensure that young people have these experiences on a regular basis, are having active and engaged conversations with employers. And these are partnerships that really do lead to long-term success, both for students, but also for the employers that are participating in the programs. We have seen countless examples from the CAPS Network and others who have been able to provide pipelines to the workforce for the students that they've worked with. So I am excited to have Corey Mohn, from the president and CEO of the CAPS Network, join us today to talk about the new platform that they have developed to ensure that we can connect young people to employers, and that employers have the toolkit and resource to know how to do this well. Often when we are talking about profession-based learning, work-based learning, there are many reasons for an employer to say no, that I can't participate in this work. I don't have the time. I don't know how to do it. And so this toolkit that has been created by the CAPS Network really is our resource for employers to show how easy it can be to engage in this work. Step-by-step guides of the types of activities employers can do, ways of interacting with schools, tips for providing access to students, and a lot of wonderful resources and examples of case studies of how this has worked particularly well over the last few years. So I'm excited for this conversation to hear from some of our employer partners and the excellent work that Corey has led at CAPS to make profession-based learning something that is not a one-off or a sort of pet project of school systems or something that only a few people can participate in, but really starting to fuel a movement to figure out how can we get profession-based learning to all students who want to participate. So with that, I will turn it over to Corey, and we're so thrilled that you could all join us today.
Thank you so much, Julie. Get me excited talking with that language about helping to steer a movement and create energy around this topic. Again, my name is Corey Mohn. I'm the president and executive director of the CAPS Network. We're a consortium of schools that are very interested in self-discovery and helping students lead their education. We talk often about going where students lead. That's incredibly important to us. We also know that one great way to do that is to help students fast forward into their futures through this idea of profession-based learning, the idea of colliding industry and educators and students and creating a really interesting and engaging mix that allows for really magical things to happen and drives incredible depth as it relates to learning. I was actually in a conversation yesterday with a former student, and we talked about the importance of matching really solid content with context. And that's really what this idea of profession-based learning is all about. I couldn't be more excited to be here with you and with these amazing panelists that you are going to get to meet, as well as Julie and the ASA team. Really today, we're going to have 3 panelists that have varying or kind of different frames of reference as it relates to profession-based learning, whether it be from the industry side, from the educator side, from the student side, or a combination of those things. We're going to have some really powerful storytelling. And then we're going to help you see and be able to access some incredible open source tools that between the ASA team and the CAPS network team that we're making available through experience.work. So I'm really excited to kind of share about this, the challenges and some of the opportunities that exist with profession-based learning and other real-world learning experiences, and make this a very fun and engaging and helpful conversation, not just to showcase amazingness, which I think you'll get to hear, but also really dig into what does this really mean. With that, we're going to actually show a couple of video clips from some of the content that exists at experience.work to whet your appetite a little bit, and then I will have a chance to introduce our panelists. The video content exists at experience.work. There are actually 3 long-form story videos that are available to you. Part of our interest in maybe getting that in front of you during the event was to preview what you're about to hear with some of our panelists. But they all have very different stories, and they come from different parts of the country and involve different elements of profession-based learning. And we're going to be able to take the time from the videos and actually tease out, what that looked like in these locations, and some of the unique elements that were a part of that. So why don't I go ahead and introduce our panelists and have them give a chance to tell their stories, and we'll actually recapture some time for that conversation and some of the Q&A that we can do as well. So I'm going to start by having Tremaine Holloway come off, get his video on and join us and tell a little bit of his story. And certainly if Kabir and John want to turn their videos on, they're welcome to. We'll get them introduced here as well. Tremaine's coming to us from Boston, Massachusetts. Kabir is up in Northeast Iowa, and John is in Lawrence, Kansas. So we've got a little bit of representation from different parts of the country. But Tremaine, let's start with you. We'd love to hear your story. Tell us who you are, where you are, what you're up to, and a little bit about your experience with profession-based learning.
Thank you so much, Corey. I appreciate the introduction and allowing me to have the space to share my story with you all here today. I'm grateful to each and every one of you on the screen and excited about the conversation that we'll be having today. So again, like Corey mentioned, my name is Tremaine Holloway, and I'd be remiss if I don't start from the beginning of how I got into education. So I'd love to take some moments to share about that. So I'm a product of an educator. My mother was an educator in rural Eastern North Carolina for 39 years. And she actually taught me when I was in high school, and that is an experience that I will never forget. Is how I would frame it. I would never forget that experience. My dad was a deacon in the church that I grew up in. My sister currently works on the elementary level as a kindergarten teacher. Both of my grandmothers were what I consider to be community organizers in their own way. My maternal grandmother was working with Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson during those times as a community organizer. And my paternal grandmother was my Sunday school teacher. So I come from a family that really values acts of service as the highest form of compensation. But for the longest time, I tried to run away from that. I didn't really think that was what I wanted to do or my purpose in calling. I had aspirations to be a professional athlete. I thought I was either going to be a NFL wide receiver or either a shooting guard in the NBA. But unfortunately, my senior year in high school, I had suffered, uh, I wouldn't call it a career-ending injury, but it was a major injury. I actually broke my leg in 2 places. And because I had broke my leg in 2 places, actually, a lot of those college coaches stopped recruiting me and viewed me more less of an asset and more of a liability. And so that put me on a different path and trajectory. Grateful that I had a mother who, again, like I mentioned before, was my educator and really pushed me to think about education, think about learning and schooling. And so because of that, I always had relatively good grades in school. And so I was able to still get a full academic scholarship to go to North Carolina Central University, where I went ahead and majored in mathematics. And the caveat for that scholarship was that I had to teach for at least 4 years in order to pay it back. So that was my entry point to education. So I became a high school math teacher after graduating, still had a chance to play college basketball at the university, taught high school math for 4 years in Durham, North Carolina. And really just begin to continue to cultivate my passion for education, for project-based learning, for place-based education in that space. I had a phenomenal mentor and great timing with Dr. Ontario Wooden, who's still a mentor to me today, who encouraged me to start thinking about administrative work, school administration, school leadership, higher levels of leadership. And so encouraged me to apply to Harvard University for the first time. And so with that being said, I was able to go to Harvard University back in 2016, receive my master's degree in school leadership. And then from there, I just decided to follow my curiosity with the hopes that it would lead me to my passion. I always have been curious about the Pacific Northwest, always wondered what it would be like to explore the Seattle area and terrain. And so in 2016, after graduating, just uprooted my family and I and just decided to go to a place I'd never been before. So moved to Seattle, Washington, and that turned it up to be probably the best experience for me, educationally and professionally. Stayed there for 7 years and had a chance to become a principal, to work in schools that were really focused on profession-based learning, like Aviation High School, which is a part of the CAPS network currently right now, and then also Maritime High School, which is also a school that's been connected to the CAPS network. So having those experiences from profession-based education, project-based learning, really cultivated for me something that I wanted to do. And so fast forward now where I am, I'm currently back in school. I'm a full-time doctoral student at Harvard University in the education leadership program, and thinking more about system level leadership and how do we do what we're doing like in organizations like CAPS, CAPS Network more in from a system level. So I'm really thinking about the superintendency and what we could do in order to make learning happen at a system level. So grateful for the experiences that I've had in Maritime High School, at Aviation High School, at Highline High School. I believe those particular experiences have allowed me to really experience place-based, profession-based education at a high level.
That's amazing, Tremaine. Not many people say my first stint at Harvard, and then here's my second stint at Harvard. I also joke with Tremaine often that he has gotten to experience and be a part of lifting up school in the air and school on the water. So most of us just do school on land, but he's ventured into other parts of the universe with his work. So Tremaine, we look forward to asking you a few questions and chatting in a bit. I mentioned agility. So we actually may have an even better format than we originally thought of because of the technical difficulties, which is leading into having Kabir speak with us, showcasing a video that he is featured in. And we believe through the great wisdom of the community that used the Q&A feature that we may have figured out what the issue was. So Alicia, if we can attempt to play the Crichton video as a lead in to Kabir, let's give that a try. And if not, again, we'll just pivot.
When we were approached on the possibility of working with high school students on the profession-based learning, I wanted to provide something that was useful to the kids, as well as for the community, as well as something for Crichton. And we didn't know how it was going to go.
When we partner with our business partners, we take on projects, and then we take our student associates, and then they get to select the project that they want to work on with their team.
Our engineers were so busy and so swamped that they didn't have time to work on some of the things that we probably should have been working on.
So Brett put up a step stool project, and I remember thinking, who's going to want to work on a step stool? Like, how is this project ever going to get picked? And it turns out it did. We had a couple of associates, one of them being Kabir, picked up this project.
While it was functional, it cost both the company and Crichton a lot of money to manufacture. So our goal was to redesign the step stool to not only make it a little bit more functional, but easier to manufacture, cost less time and money.
We would have to work with the students learning about the processes. It's one thing to draw something, but now you have to make it. So in the end, they actually do all the steps that anyone on my engineering team would have to do.
I think it's the best way to get experience. They did not hold our hands through it. They treated us as if we were, adults, and we've been in the field for quite some time.
They came up with a really good product, and it went so well that they
This video is worth, see, we cut it off in time, so you have other reasons to come and see it on the site. It's an amazing video. But Kabir, you're here live and in the flesh, as it were, at least virtually. It's great to see you. Tell us more about your story. You have a very unique story where you've actually been both a student in this model and are now a mentor and working in a very unique place.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Kabir Bhatia. I'm currently a manufacturing engineer at Crichton Metals. They're the same team and company that I co-opted with when I was going through CAPS as my high school senior year. Going all the way back, we're going to 2017, 8 years now, which is crazy. When I was a senior in Cedar Falls High School, and my counselor approached me about a program that's just being kickstarted called CAPS, and I asked her, I was like, what's it entail? What does it have in there? And she was like, I have no idea. I just know it's engineering related. Go ahead and give it a try. I was like, all right, let's do it. From there, we worked on a step stool project, which at the time, I was like, how hard could making a step stool be? It's, pretty simple. There's thousands of designs out there, but this one was specifically going to a cryogenic freezer for a company that Crichton worked with. And that kind of upped the stakes because there's a lot of liability issues. If something goes haywire, responsibilities and people to blame. So after that happened, it seemed like that they accepted our project, and then Brett and Zach, the people that were mentoring me, approached me and said, hey, do you want to actually make a presentation and pitch it to them? And we were like super nerve-wracking, but we were like, yeah, let's do it. Definitely something that got me out of my comfort zone, because as a high school senior, you're not really all that comfortable, even as college students. But that was a great experience. They all liked it. Everything went well. And I was really thankful for that experience. After that, I went to Hawkeye Community College, which is a community college in the area that I'm from. And I was there for a year just doing my gen eds. And I had a job shadow because I didn't know what I wanted to do for engineering. I just know it needed to be something in engineering, not exactly what. So I went and job shadowed as an architect and kind of followed them around for about 4 to 5 hours of their day. And I kind of realized that it's kind of boring and not really something I wanted to do. Just a whole lot of math, a whole lot of just things that I wasn't really looking for. Kind of seemed like a sit at your desk for 8 to 10 hours a day and do the same thing, which I kind of wasn't really interested in at the time. After my year at Hawkeye, I interned for the first time at Crichton Engineered Metals, the same place I did my CAPS experience, and they were really happy to see me come back, and I was really happy that they accepted me in their program. And after getting my experience there, I moved on to Iowa State University right after. And during the winters and the summers, I would go back to Crichton and intern there. And it was a year in Iowa State that the CEO, founder at the time, approached me and said, hey, we'd love to have you on board. And we'd love to help you out with your student loans and all that. So we kind of signed a contract from there. I was more than happy to do so because I was really thankful as a college junior or sophomore to be offered that opportunity right out of college. From there, I interned with them. In between Iowa State, I also got a freelancing job that I heard Nate Clayberg, one of my CAPS mentors at the time, talk to me about. And I took a dive into freelancing. I did article writing, content creation, video creation, just learning new skills from there. From there, after graduating in 2021, I started full-time back at Crichton 2022 as a manufacturing engineer. And shortly after, a CAPS mentor, kind of coming a full circle there. And after that, with my freelance skills, I wanted to go into a little bit of marketing that Crichton does. So I kind of took a part-time role as their digital marketing specialist, if you'd call it, running their social media pages, promoting other projects and products. And I have also signed up for a digital marketing degree with another university at the fall of this year. Just hoping to see where that goes and learn new skills from there.
That's amazing, Kabir. Thank you for sharing that. And I do encourage you to watch the full video at experience.work with Kabir. One of the fun things is you get to see young Kabir. You see Kabir when he was like 17 years old, and then you also get to see Kabir in present day, and it's amazing to see. Yeah, you're shaking your head like, oh, please, I'm embarrassed. Amazing. So we're going to come over to John Musau, but before, we'd also like to show a short clip of a project that he has been working on with profession-based learning called Unwired Coffee. So Alicia, if you're able to, we'd love to see that one as well.
The students have just been outstanding. They've given my son not just a voice, but the farmers in Kenya also have a voice now. My son is on the spectrum. He has autism. We tried different medications, and most of the medications were stimulants. We decided that the best way to get this treatment was try and find a non-synthetic way of treating. We thought, since we love coffee, we should give coffee a shot. Coffee calmed him down. Coffee helped him relax. And his grandfather grows coffee. So we decided to take a trip to Kenya, which is where I'm from. A lot of the farmers are giving up on growing coffee. The reason is because they're not getting good prices for coffee. So we approached Bo. Bo was very willing to work with us, and he agreed to connect with the farmers in Kenya. He agreed to work with the students, and he agreed to work with my son, Chenny, to develop a product that can help mitigate the conditions for autism, but also help the farmers by providing a direct market.
I love coffee. And so anytime somebody says, hey, let's work with coffee, I say, absolutely. My youngest brother, he's severely mentally handicapped as well. So this project means something a little more.
We didn't have a logo for the product, so we got together with the students. They were great. They did a wonderful job producing a logo, which we're wearing right now, and which the product is packed in.
You really can't learn this stuff in a lab. You have to have firsthand experience. My teacher, Dr. Crane, pushed me to take the project. I designed the font and the pattern and background, picked out the colors, and built all of the packaging and everything.
I was so surprised. It's a very timeless design. It fits the project very well.
It was really encouraging to hear back from Bo and from John and say that they absolutely loved it and that I'm career ready, which was like a confidence booster for me. Normal high school students don't really get that.
To be able to have an industry partner collaborate with young students and give them that opportunity to have or develop those skills is important, because it prepares them for college, and those that don't go to college, it prepares them for the job market. So I think it's a fabulous opportunity that I would encourage anybody in business or in industry should take advantage of.
This is a triple bottom line win, coming from 3 different models of the entrepreneurial side and the for-profit. You've got the education side, you've got a nonprofit, and everybody wins. And at the end of the day, if everybody wins, sign me up. That's the business that I crave.
All right, John, I don't know how you top that, but welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. You've been an amazing industry partner and a friend. Tell us more about your story.
Well, thank you, Corey, and everyone else on the panel. It's really an honor for me to be part of this discussion. One is, I don't know, there are many important things in life, or professions, I should say. Doctors that take care of us when we're not well. Some people think lawyers, others say accountants, but I think above all is educators. So anytime I'm in the middle or I'm involved with educators, I feel as if I'm in a place maybe I shouldn't be. I'm underqualified, but it's great to be part of this panel. One of the things that I feel very privileged about one is being a parent. Because if I didn't have my son, I probably wouldn't be part of this panel right now. And then also the opportunity to go to such a great school district, and I have to recognize it. It's the Blue Valley School District in Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas, for those of you that may not know. A school district that's really focused on making sure students are first, and supports the initiatives that make whatever results that these students achieve a priority. As you probably saw in the video, my son is on the spectrum, and he went through a program that's called LIFT. It's a SPED program within the Blue Valley School District. Through his high school year, he really was engaged in many activities within school. And, I'm not talking about just within the LIFT program, but generally within his high school life. So, he had classroom peers that would come from Gen Ed and share time with him. And through that, we started thinking as parents, and also in collaboration with his teachers, how do we best position him? Because he probably, he wasn't going to graduate as a typical student with a diploma, but have a project that really was meaningful for him and could have impact for him, after high school. And so he loved working coffee. During his late high school years as a senior, he'd take the coffee cart around to teachers, and he has a great smile. If you ever meet him, it's contagious. So everybody liked getting coffee from him. And we thought, hey, coffee is something which he loves. He loves people. He loves smiles. He loves hospitality. It'd be great to do something that was meaningful, as I alluded to in the video, to his health, because coffee has been something that he was using to mitigate ADHD effects of his spectrum diagnosis. And maybe have something that we could find an industry partner to really help make a project, somewhat of a capstone project for him, that could not only help his condition, but also, have an industry partner that could do something that would be meaningful to those that grow the product in Africa, specifically in Kenya. Through that, I had several people that I knew, and one of my friends said, "Hey, there's a program called CAPS in your school district, and there's a great guy that you already know that's called Corey. He may be able to maybe have a pathway for you to connect all these people together." So I called Corey, and Corey was like, let me make some phone calls and see how we can make this happen. So he connected me with Chad at Blue Valley Caps. Chad is the director of the program there. And then I knew I have a background in hospitality, so my career has always been hospitality. And so I had some connections on the coffee side. That's how I got Bo involved. Bo owns a great coffee company, a coffee roaster company called Almaist Coffee Roasters here in Kansas City. For those of you that haven't checked it out, you should check it out. They have a great website if you don't live in Kansas City, but if you live in Kansas City, make sure you stop there. But Bo was very excited about the project. He wanted to see how it could be helpful. So I connected Bo with Chad. We connected with the Chinese teacher at Lyft. And to me, it was just an amazing experience to watch, three different entities within the education system and within industry come together. You had, Chad and his instructors, at Blue Valley, the students there. You had the LIFT program, which is not tied to CAPS, but is within the same school district, and an industry partner who really didn't have much experience within the education system collaborate to make this happen. So I know we'll talk more about how all this came together, but that's how this whole Unwired Coffee project was born. It's crazy because it's almost a year now. We have a product on the shelf. It's selling well. Every Tuesday, Chenny heads out to the roaster and he packs his bags of coffee. I got one right here. He enjoys going out and doing his chore. And it's just it's a great privilege to see industry partners, students come together and make things happen. Not just for themselves, but for a good cause.
Thank you, John. I'm not a coffee drinker. People that know me know that I'm an iced tea man, but I will tell you, my wife is pretty obsessed with Unwired Coffee. And so when we run out, I know it. And I know it because she keeps the package, she folds it up and she puts it places I can see it so that I can go buy her more Unwired Coffee. Thank you all. Amazing stories. There's so much depth and richness to them. And we're going to dig in a little more in some Q&A time. We do know, just real quickly, that there's a lot of research that backs up the fact that this kind of learning is really important and that we should be thinking about more students engaging in this type of learning. Julie knows that better than anyone over at ASA and all the research that they've been a part of pulling together. So let me start the Q&A by going over to Julie here with American Student Assistance. And you just heard these 3 stories. I know, Julie, you're familiar with the stories, but now you're hearing directly from the individuals that are behind the stories. What are your reflections on the possibilities of getting more industry partners or professionals off the sidelines and engaged in, with students across the country?
Yeah, I think these stories really highlight, I think, one of the missing factors that we have in trying to engage employers, which is really trying to articulate the return on investment from the employer side. I think employers, they're not primarily educators. We know that, right? It is not their job to train the future generation. But we believe that there is a responsibility to make sure that they are actively engaged in working with school systems to make sure not only students have the skills that they need, but employers have a pipeline to the types of employees that they're looking for. And I think there are great examples here of the types of skills that were built in CAPS programs and in these profession-based learning models that really do help both employers and students get to a place of success. And so I think what we then need to do is figure out how to make that easy for them. I think we saw great examples in this work of employers that were actively engaged, that were willing to say yes. Sometimes it's more of a hard sell than I would say we see in these examples, that employers really do need to be convinced that there is both a role for them to play and that it's not going to be overly burdensome for them to do so. And so sharing this information, showing them what the path forward is, showing them how they can partner with employers is so critically important, with school systems is so critically important to ensure that it's not just left to the schools to make sure students are educated for the future, but employers are getting what they need and can help provide needed supports and guidance. And the real world learning that we know is so important to engage young people in their academic life. We have seen a huge shift since the pandemic, really, of student engagement. And one way we know works incredibly well is to connect them to the real world. They don't just want to sit in a classroom and be talked at. They want to know how math, how science, how their writing lesson will apply to their life long term. And one way of doing it is through profession-based learning and connecting them to real world projects. So it solves 2 problems for us, not only an educator pipeline challenge, but also a student engagement challenge. And I think that's so critically important to keep in mind as we're thinking about the fact that schools don't have capacity to do more. It's not asking you to do more. It's reshifting the way kids are learning in such a critically important way. And John, I had the pleasure of visiting Blue Valley CAPS a few times in the last couple of years, and I agree that it is a wonderful place, and you're lucky that your son was able to attend there.
Thank you, Julie. I do want to make a comment, and I appreciate all the amazing storytelling and the kind of shouts out for programs like CAPS. I do want to make it clear that my belief is anyone can do this. And there are lots of people out in the ecosystem that are doing incredible work. It doesn't have to fly under any single banner. And honestly, a lot of the point of experience.work is to create a neutral space where we can share resources and help each other do more of this work. So I appreciate that. And Julie gave kind of a nice segue over to Kabir. So Kabir, I'm imagining, especially given your backdrop on your video today, that I'm seeing young Kabir like in a more traditional classroom, wishing he had the space he has now with all the spray paint and the tools and the ability to roll the sleeves up. So I'm wondering, Kabir, what would you say, someone who's been in the seat as a student, who's obviously with an employer now and as a mentor, what would you say to educators that are on the fence about diving into something like profession-based learning, something like the experience you had in your program at Cedar Falls CAPS? You know, what's your advice or what's your guidance to someone who's questioning whether or not this is the right thing to do?
Yeah, so back when I did CAPS, obviously, if I went back, I'd do it again 100 times. But there's a lot of educators out there that are still on the line, like, should we do it? Is it worth it? I would definitely say yes, hands down. For educators and for companies. For educators, it provides non-traditional learning, which kind of helps stimulate some of that learning that students really need during their junior and senior phase. Back when I was a senior, that phrase senioritis, you just want to graduate, be done with it already. I was kind of hitting that. I didn't really want to do anything else. I just wanted to find a job and make money, but CAPS really helped me get out of my comfort zone and find new skills that I didn't even know I had. And even to this day, I'm still learning new things. And I don't think that would have happened without CAPS. And for companies that are out there that are on the line about whether we should do CAPS or is it going to be a burden? I know Julie mentioned a little bit about it, but being on this side, mentoring other CAPS students right now, I just basically took whatever jobs I had that were pending and gave it to them. I'm treating them as if they're my coworkers. I'm treating them as if they've been doing this for 10 years of their life, just how Brett and Zach treated me back when I was in CAPS. That kind of helps put a little bit of pressure on them, and it kind of drives creativity in my mind. And at the end of the day, I'm getting something done as a company. One of my projects, or sometimes two or three of my projects, are complete, and it literally took no resources from my side to get that done, and there's only positive benefits out of that.
I love that, Kabir. Thanks for sharing that. And it reminded me, just last week, I was visiting a program, one of the programs in the CAPS network, but students were talking about their experiences and what they found that they had kind of determined and learned about themselves. And one of the students said, I've learned that there's this thing called project management. And I'm actually really good at it and I like it. And I said, well, that's great. And then I immediately, and I don't always do this, I'll be honest, I wish I did this more often or had the forethought, but I actually went straight to my head and said, what is on my to-do list right now that this young lady could take care of, this young professional? And we now have her synced up, and she's going to be working with me on a project to help our affiliate programs build up their, essentially the way that they connect with their alumni, and build that kind of bridge. And there's some technical aspects to this project, but that's exactly what she wants to do. So always thinking about that. And I love it. I love that you're thinking about it in that way and that increasing your capacity as a professional. John, what an incredibly powerful story, particularly because it relates to your blood, right, with your son and various opportunities and challenges that have come along the way for Chenny. I'm wondering, as you've kind of reflected on this project, and obviously you've been focused on your son directly, but has this process taught you anything or gleaned more information or validated for you lessons that we all need to hear as it relates to any student getting benefit and kind of being involved in something like profession-based learning?
Absolutely. I can write a book about this, but I think I can, there are a couple of things that come in mind right away. One is, you know, um, you never really imagined that, through project-based learning or maybe professional-based learning, that a child or a student that's got special needs can really be able to be empowered, to come up with something that is very meaningful to them. And what I mean by that is, Chenny was not necessarily empowered. I mean, I was a part of setting this up for him, but really who made it possible was his peers, his teachers, and the industry partners. The fact that his peers at Lyft, or his peers generally at general education, heard about the program, which was something that was necessarily on their curriculum. They every now and then went into the lift room and they saw Chenny and they mentored him. But it pulled them into a service. Tremaine, I think you talked about service, right? It pulled them into a service that they typically wouldn't have ever thought about. And it exposed them to an opportunity to do a project that was very meaningful for themselves, right? Getting the real world learning, but also understand a little bit more about uh, the impact that it had globally. It wasn't just about Chenny that has special needs and that coffee was important in his health, but also the farmers that this impacted globally, right? So the economics of it, and then understand what it takes to get that. It was kind of funny because as they got to learn about coffee, they didn't realize that coffee starts as a cherry, right? They always thought coffee was a bean. So that whole, I mean, there's agriculture to it, there's economics to it, there's commerce that's tied to it, and then they get to the roaster and they're like, man, how do you get from this gray looking thing to this brown looking thing, and how do you get a smell? And they're like, they learn the physics, right? There's physics and chemistry that goes along the roasting process. So Corey, for me, that was a big learning opportunity for me. So this kid with SPED, brought all these people together, and through that, every step of that process, I was learning. That was learning for me as a parent. That was learning for his teacher. That was learning for my friend Bo at Dalmaist. And I was learning. I just came back from a trip from Kenya and I took a packet of coffee there. I just got back last week, as a matter of fact, and told the story about caps, right? And at first they were like, what? Like, I mean, they couldn't understand how students could have come up with this, and so it gave me an opportunity to be able to tell them, what partnerships that it's possible for high school students, if given the opportunity and given the choice, to blow your mind. So I went back to the website and looked up, and I saw something that's been posted there as a resource that says, "Hey, what's the 10th thing on your list?" And I was like, let me use that and see how that works. And it's funny because culturally, it's a shift, right? That the young people can actually do some good things. So when you ask any industry partner, when I ask at least an industry partner there, hey, what's a 10 thing? Interesting enough, they had a thing and they didn't mind giving that thing to somebody to work on. So it's just been amazing. It's just been an amazing journey. And I feel that, Corey, that's probably been the biggest takeaway for me as we move forward with this.
I love that. And you went to something that I was going to ask you. You already answered it, which is there are these ripple effects that happen, right? When you get involved in a project, suddenly other things come about, and it moves from a singular project with one intention, and suddenly it has legs and creates possibilities for communities halfway around the world to transform their economies, to transform life. I mean, it's just incredible. And I would encourage anyone to reach back out, get to know more about the Unwired Coffee story. But I know John would be willing to visit with you about it and get more detail to you. Tremaine, I want to come over to you. You have an awesome journey, and you're continuing that journey. I know you have increasing aspirations in terms of what you want to do and how you want to make impact. So we know that it's easy to get excited about this kind of work when you see these types of stories, but then it can also be easy for someone who's been in education to struggle with the fact that this does feel so different. So as someone who's been an administrator who's supported a new school that does this type of work, how did you manage that as an administrator? Anything that can ease the mind of those that are in education that want to make that step, but maybe they're struggling to get there?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Corey. That's always one that's very challenging, and one that I also often grapple with as well, right? When I think about education. But I would say everything that you want and desire is on the other side of try. And you never know what will, unless you put something out there, unless you start thinking about what it could be, you never know. So I always just encourage people. I think about Sylvester Chisholm, who's also like connected to the CAPS network. He always ends his podcast by saying, you don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started in order to become great. And so when I think about that, that's how I feel about creating powerful learning experiences for youth, for children in schools or in education facilities in general. So just really thinking about how do you get started, right? So and I really love the fact that Julie brought up, the concept of like thinking about the pandemic and how things had to change since the pandemic. And I'll be honest, I mean, a lot of folks, unfortunately, during the pandemic had some struggles, had challenges. A lot of things happened during that time, but for us, at least at Maritime High School, it was an opportunity for us to do things differently. It was an opportunity for us to reset, to refocus, to recenter what was most important. And that was really creating these profession-based learning experiences. How do we think about schools as not just community hubs, but cities as learning laboratories? And so that really gave us, just the vision and the mission to be able to create that. So I think when you really start reimagining what education looks like, when you start to think about how powerful it can really be by connecting students who need power to those who have power, so that the industries that they're trying to enter into can be powerful. That is the motivating factor. That is the most impactful thing that you can think of. So that's some of the motivating things that I would try to say to educators who are in that grappling space. And I've been there too, so I'm definitely there. I definitely feel them.
I mean, I'm motivated. I'm ready to go. Tremaine's got me fired up. Hey, I do want to let the audience know we have a Q&A function, and we're getting into the last 10 minutes of our time. And I do have some quick rapid fire questions, one for Tremaine, one for Kabir. But if you have something that's on your mind, that's a pressing question that if you got an answer to it, it would make a difference for you, please put it in the Q&A, and we'll see if we can sneak that in. If not, we'll do a follow-up after the webinar. Tremaine, real quick for you, and I know when we get into storytelling, it's hard to go quickly, but is there a favorite story you have of a student that engaged with industry, either at Aviation High or Maritime, that is worthy of kind of showcasing another example?
You know, man, yeah, dang, Corey, you're asking me the hard question today. Yeah. Condense them, right? I would say probably the most memorable experience and story I can think of is just, literally students being out on water and having the opportunity to share that experience with industry professionals. So I think back to when I was at Maritime High School, there was a project that students were doing where they got to learn all the historical narratives and all the historical context of this river called the Warmish River. And so there's an organization that we partnered with, the Wamish River Community Coalition, who did some amazing work to help our students to be adequately prepared and understand and learn the history, the narratives of not only the Duwamish tribe, but also the importance of that body of water in the greater Seattle area. And so to be able to have not at the time ninth and 10th grade students on a vessel and bringing on industry people and then allowing the students to actually lead and guide the tours while they're going down the river, I thought was just an amazing flip on how we think about education. I think oftentimes we think about education from like this banking concept of the teacher, the educator has all the knowledge and all the wisdom, and they're literally depositing that into students. But in that particular situation, it was actually flipped. So to see those students, those learners actually educating, the adults, the professionals, I thought that was exciting. And then one of the most important individuals that was on that vessel was actually the superintendent of the school district at that time. And so for him, he was like, wow, I never knew all this information, this insight about this one particular river, this one particular body of water here in Seattle. So I think that in itself just allowed us to really shift the paradigm of what learning really could be when we think about profession-based learning.
I love that. Again, school on the water. I mean, what's not to like about that? Very engaging. We did have a question that can quickly be answered that came in on the Q&A, which is a question about cost. And one thing in terms of like the programming and how does this work? So there are different elements to that. The quick answer is the resources at experience.work are absolutely free to use. They're open source. There are quick guides that assist educators on one page of the site. There's another page that's specific for industry partners, also quick guides on how you engage with the school system. So there's a lot there that you can take and use free of charge, and that was the point of it. Certainly happy to have a conversation offline about some of the programming you're hearing about, because there are some different details as it relates to engaging with something like the CAPS network or building a local program, and you need to kind of factor in and budget for that. So we will reach out to you afterwards for additional information there. Kabir, I always say go where students lead, and we always talk about students kind of being upfront. So we had you answer a question pretty close to the front of our Q&A. I'm going to also give you the rights to my last official question, which is when you think back and reflect on your experience with profession-based learning, I want you to particularly think about the moment you went from what felt like a more traditional classroom and kind of just staying in your high school to a program like Cedar Falls CAPS. What was it like in the first couple of weeks? And is there any one thing in particular that you felt was the most jarring, or maybe the thing you had to really kind of push your comfort zone to get there, but then you've reflected and said, wow, that was really impactful to me?
Yeah, the time that it took, basically we started, the first couple of weeks was just the design phase, which we were kind of familiar with. It felt more of a school setting at that point, just without the desks and teachers and whatnot. It was still design work, but everything after that first 2 weeks was brand new, completely new, and non-traditional learning, like you mentioned. Um, Complete change and something that we weren't necessarily comfortable with. Uh, but that was the whole point of it, was to get us out of our comfort zone. Um, Going from there forward, that push kind of helped me navigate, and my partner at the time, Graham, who was with me during the Step Stool project, helped us discover new places in college and places that I wouldn't have even thought of visiting or even had the courage of visiting. Um, One thing I wanted to mention was once you go into college, they want you to attend a job fair. It's just something that the university puts together. And when I went in, like, that's something I would have never gone into, but it's like, because of all that comfort and the courage that I gained from CAPS, it really helped me open up and I could talk to potential employers. I can, you know, make eye contact with them, shake their hand firmly. Everything that I needed to know about talking and interviewing, I learned the year before or 2 years before. And I was looking at all my peers, all the other people that were interviewing with them, seniors, and they were missing a lot of that etiquette. And I was just thinking, man, if they took some sort of a CAPS program or a profession-based learning program or any sort of experience related to that, you know, it'd give them that little push or just something that they would need to be successful in their field or to get hired or whatever they needed at the time. Um, I had another experience at my senior year with the job fair, but at that point I was already contracted with Crichton. I just kind of went for the fun of it and even more comfortable with everything. It opened up so many new ideas. So, I also, really quick, if we have time, wanted to mention that a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a family friend of ours, and they have high school kids now. I think juniors. Talked to them about, hey, so you guys going into the CAPS program? And they both said no. And I was really shocked because I was like, why everybody's been saying yes, you know? Why are you saying no? And they said, well, we think that they don't really have what we're looking for, or maybe I don't want to go into it, or maybe if I do go into it and I end up hating it, kind of would be like a waste of my time, waste of theirs, waste of resources. But I always want to tell students, mentors, educators, and companies that, you know, if you go into something and CAPS can help you and you end up hating it, like that's not a waste of time. That's just going to save you money and time and resources just down the road.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kabir. I think that applies to all profession-based learning, the idea of exploration. The term that we use a lot is try it out, rule it out, and that you kind of narrow your funnel of opportunities, which it sounds limiting, but it's actually empowering because it gives you a more clear target, but with some pivotability still built in. Well, I want to thank Julie and the ASA team for being an amazing partner with CAPS Network and the launch of Experience.work, and for Julie to be on and answer a question and to kind of get us started today. I want to thank John and Tremaine and Kabir for being panelists today and explaining and sharing their stories, many of which, all of them really, are personal to them. So appreciate the vulnerability and the willingness to share. I do want to leave you all with just encouragement. The nice thing about experience.work is it's not just the name of the site, it is the site. So I'd say we'll throw the link to you, but if you remember experience.work, you know how to get there. It's not just videos. There are articles that have been sourced across the country from people that have very interesting perspectives. It's all meant to be tactical and practical. There are quick guides. There are short form video, long form video. There is also a way for you to provide information so that we can continue to fill you in when we add content to the site. So there's a lot of places where you can share contact information. I would encourage you to do so. I'd also let you know if you're on LinkedIn, make sure you search experience.work and follow that page, because that is constantly being updated, and it's a way that we can curate more of this information. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it very much. Please take advantage of the site and let us know how we can continue to help you.